everyone. This panel is discussing the importance of cross-chain interoperability in decentralized finance. We have today a number of panelists. We have Jack Liu, founder and CEO of Wanchain. We have Alex Melikhov, founder and CEO of Equilibrium. We have John Patrick Mullin, co-founder of Mantra DAO and SOMA.finance. And we have Dylan Dewdney, Chief Effort Officer at Kylin Network. So I think we can start with the introductions. Jack, if you'd help to lead us with the intros.
Sure. I've been in the crypto space since 2012. I've been in the software engineer space for more than 20 years. I co-founded another blockchain project, Factum, back in 2014, and started Wanchain project in 2017. And Wanchain, WAN stands for WAN, Wide Area Network. Our main focus, certainly Wanchain is a public chain, but our main focus is interoperability. We try to integrate not only the public chain side, but also private chain side. We try to create a wide area network of blockchains. We call it blockchain or blockchains. And our focus is to mainly focuses on the asset side, bring the assets flow on not only the private chain that will connect with the traditional financial institutions, also public chain or bridge all these traditional finance and the new digital economy. Go ahead, Nelson.
Yeah, what about Alex? If you can introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex. I'm the CEO and founder with the Equilibrium team. So I'm in crypto for quite a while. I'm actually started my own projects, the first one in 2016. I actually was aware of Bitcoin even before that, since I believe 2012. So currently I'm deep into the DeFi space. In a nutshell, Equilibrium is the maybe one of the most comprehensive DeFi platforms on the market, which is aiming to solve the fragmentation of DeFi and simplify user experience by introducing the most sustained DeFi primitives in a single interface, in a single product line. And actually, these primitives include, first of all, the pooled lending functionality, also the functionality of synthetics, including the decentralized stablecoin. We have the native one, which is backed to dollar, backed by the basket of crypto collateral. Also, we'll be delivering the decentralized exchange, which will be highly leveraging this functionality of DeFi primitives as well by delivering the margin trading functionality through our lending platform. And on top of that, we are building the Canary network, which is called Chinchilla. It's currently competing for the slot on Kusama network. And by the way, if somebody watches us today and is actually looking for contribution into Kusama auctions, keep us in mind. And if you're considering to contribute over 500 KSMs, we have a special offer for you. Feel free to reach out and we'll have a talk.
John?
Yeah, sure. So I'm John, co-founder of Mantra DAO and SOMA.finance. So based in Hong Kong currently, been in crypto for about 4 years full-time. And before that, I was working in a bank up in Shanghai. I'm originally from the United States. Founded Mantra DAO about 1.5 years ago. Was actually meant to be a kind of a cross-chain DeFi platform that provides a bunch of different DeFi services, including staking, lending. We have a launch pad. We actually literally just had a launch about an hour ago that sold out in 2 minutes. That was pretty successful. And we've launched everything currently on maybe a bit different than some of the other participants on the panel, but we're currently based as a dApp that's aiming to become a cross-chain dApp built on a bunch of different layer 1 protocols, including Substrate and Polkadot and Kusama and whatnot down the line. Currently live on Ethereum, BSC, Polygon. Shortly live on Heko, Solana, Kusama, and Polkadot whenever the auctions happen over there. That's the Mantra side. SOMA side, which is kind of like the regulated twin sister of Mantra DAO, So SOMA is a joint venture between Montreal and a U.S. regulated broker-dealer called Tritorian Capital based in New York City. And we are building what we think is the world's first regulated AMM for multi-asset exchange, peer-to-peer exchange. So this is falling under the U.S. licensing, but it comprises essentially a globally compliant AMM that allows for the trading, peer-to-peer trading of anything from crypto assets to tokenized equities, ETFs, commodities, you name it, we'll be able to do it. And this is not a synthetic, this is one-to-one backed. You own it. So that's a pretty exciting thing that we're going to be launching in the near future. That's also going to be primarily launched on Ethereum to start, but also we see a cross-chain future with that project as well.
Very exciting. Dylan?
Hey, everybody. My name's Dewdney, and I hope everyone's doing well today. I want to say thanks for this platform to be able to discuss some of these issues or challenges that we may have and some of the great visions and goals that we have in mind to go to. I'm Chief Effort Officer at Kylin Network. What that means is basically project lead. But I try to live up to that title that I gave myself and try to be hopefully one of the harder working members of the team. Although quickly as we move to our DAO and some of our community members are actually taking leadership roles, I think that title may not be earned any longer, as some of the more technically oriented people in our team are doing some amazing work. I came into the space pretty early. I was aware of Bitcoin in late 2010 and then didn't dive in until late 2011. I did some mining, was able to meet some of the Ethereum team early on because I'm based in Toronto. That was a very influential time for me because I was able to, all those sort of promises of DeFi that we are experiencing now were sort of put forward in visions of smart contracts back then. And in terms of what we do at Kylin, what I like to call us is a validated, we're sort of a data blockchain. We try to, good data, good accurate data is good, and bad, inaccurate data, it's bad. That's and it may seem simplistic to put it that way, but indeed, having validated data is extremely important in powering, if you call it the underside of a lot of the automations that DeFi comprises or smart contracts comprise. You need to have good information going in, otherwise you're going to get kind of screwed on the back end of these things. So that's my intro.
So in terms of cross-chain interoperability, what is cross-chain interoperability, and why is it important to have that between blockchains, especially when it comes to DeFi? If anyone wants to start with that.
Yeah, I can take a stab on that. Yeah, for blockchains today, many there are so many public chains and so many private chains as well. They are having the different languages, the different consensus mechanism, different technologies there. They cannot talk to each other, right? And for them to interoperable, we would say, well, we need to send data, asset, or operation from one chain to another. Right? We generally would say interoperable. We can do operations across different chains, right? So it's not only on information, right? For the information to be passed over, right? Information means the data and also could be the asset, right? And also the operation. And you need to recognize or have the identity of each chain, right? See where it comes from, right? And if a Bitcoin is being forked multiple times, you need to know that which one that is, right? So it's very, very, because it's decentralized, we cannot have an IP address. It's very difficult to solve, right? So for them to interoperable, it's very important, just like in the old days of internet, right? Back in my old days, right, when I started consulting, I noticed some of the companies have their own, PCs connected. Right? They're not interconnected with outside of their, we call it local area networks, right? And eventually, the power or the value actually can show when they are actually connected. Right? And so when we see the internet, right? When we see the same thing for blockchain. We will see the internet of blockchains. Eventually, as a user, we can send data or asset or operation from their could be a mobile device or any device, and they can send all these different things from one chain to another. And that's why we are building for Wanchain. We build a wide area network of blockchains first, and then eventually we have many of these networks. Eventually we'll connect all of them, and from the user's perspective, you won't feel a thing behind what's the technology behind it, and just like what we see on the internet today. Hopefully, I think that's why the interoperability at this stage is very, very important. I know that there are many technologies out there at this point, but we are trying to get to the common protocol at one point. Nelson?
I can maybe just add a quick little comment to that. I think you did a pretty good job there, Jack. I think right now a lot of what we're seeing in DeFi isn't really true cross-chain. You're seeing what we're building currently because of technological limitations. We're building a multi-chain ecosystem, which means we have almost standalone products that exist on Ethereum, that exist on BSC, that exist on Polygon. And users are having to be able to basically switch networks and basically move assets through bridges, centralized bridges for the most part, in order to move and interact on these different products on different chains. It's not a super seamless user experience, but where the technology is trending to and what projects are trying to do is make it so that you can change let's say you're participating on one of our Ethereum staking pools. You can change your Ethereum staked asset into a BSC staked asset or a Polygon staked asset. Whether it's OM on BSC, Polygon, or Ethereum, it shouldn't matter. That just does not exist yet. So that's really, kind of where everyone is headed and kind of the holy grail, I think. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot left ahead, and that just means we're still quite early on a lot of stuff, which is exciting.
Yeah, let me maybe. Okay. Yeah, sorry, Dylan. Just wanted to jump in and give a few insights, maybe on more DeFi perspective of that. So first of all, like what John mentioned is representing the user experience fragmentation, and actually it's scattered across multiple blockchains, and definitely not that convenient to use the current DeFi applications. But on top of that, we can consider that as a fragmentation of liquidity, right? Because currently users, they can interact with a specific chain and move assets within the boundaries of this chain to interact with the applications that are actually based on this chain. Let's take Ethereum, right? So most of the applications are currently just locked onto the Ethereum blockchain, but they cannot deal with some other assets, maybe just despite we have like a bunch of synthetic assets arriving from different other blockchains like synthetic Bitcoin, WBTC or something, but it's still not that user experience that all of us expect from interacting with the blockchain technologies, right? So you want actually to have physical Bitcoin, to pledge it into the lending protocol and take out some loans and stable coins on, per se, on Ethereum, some other blockchain. Right, and because of lack of interoperability, it's currently almost impossible, and you need to interact with a specific chain to make use of the current DeFi applications. So obviously, this can be solved by true interoperability, by delivering the decentralized bridges, by launching them and having certain improving user experience, first of all. And that's exactly what we're doing at Equilibrium, by the way. So far, we have developed our own bridges to bridge our substrate with Ethereum, to bridge our substrate with the Binance Smart Chain. And we're going to launch this functionality as a standalone substrate before we go live with our parachain. But anyways, like our expectation that certain prominent protocols like Polkadot per se, and some others who are promising true cross-chain interoperability, actually will solve this problem, and definitely there will be sort of breakthrough on the DeFi market.
Indeed, I see, just to add to that, I think like I think although DeFi is arguably huge and massive and much bigger in some ways than any of us expected it to be, over the last year or so, we have to recall that a lot of this stuff happens as a lot of this stuff is born out of composite sort of level circumstances. So we had to have stable coins in play. We had to have dexes that actually kind of worked, like all respect to Ether Delta. And we also had to have the context where people were sort of like ready for that message too. I see DeFi like now, like I think DeFi is actually in testnet phase, and when we start getting to like if we start getting to these other composite circumstances in the picture to the fore for this conversation, interoperability, then we're going to see DeFi move out of testnet, right? And it's going to become massified. And I think, get ready, because I don't think anybody is, everybody's like, okay, and all these things have that. It's like a similar sort of holding period to some extent to where we were perhaps in, 2018, 2019. We're in that building kind of phase again, I think, as much as there's a reality of DeFi encased, primarily in Ethereum level solutions, and then more recently, BSC and things like that. But with efforts like Jax and efforts at Polkadot as well, I think that we're going to get there.
And so, when it comes to cross-chain interoperability, I mean, it seems like we're definitely in day one when it comes to DeFi development. How do you see that playing out, and how do you see that flow of liquidity moving throughout different chains when we do achieve cross-chain interoperability? How is that going to affect and enhance the services provided by decentralized finance?
Yeah, I can start with that. So currently the assets, like what John mentioned earlier, right? These assets are located in different chains, and some projects have multi-chain strategy. Basically, they have like for example, USDC or USDT, they issue their tokens on different chains, and some projects they issue tokens on different chains, right? And we need to have the multi-chain strategy bridges to go with them as well, right? So we recently come up with this multi-chain, cross-chain bridges, and also we have because of the Ethereum, we have this layer 2 solution because of the high gas costs on Ethereum, right? And so we need to bridge all these different layers as well, right? So when we have this solution that can bring assets from layer 1 to layer 2, and also layer 2, there are multiple layer 2 solutions. We need to bring assets, bridge all these different layer 2 solutions, right? And we have this technology we call it cross-chain layer and the cross-chain bridge, multi-chain solution. And actually user just have to rely on this network. We call, let's say, we have this technology called Stallman nodes, right? And people rely on this network instead of trusting many of the currently there are many centralized solutions, centralized bridges, right? People trust this network instead of giving your private keys to somebody else. You trust this network just like you trust a blockchain, right? So when you transfer the asset from one chain to another or one layer to another, you always have your own key, right? And you play on different blockchain or different DeFi applications. You can move them on different chains as long as this network supports that asset, and user always have their full control of this asset. I think that's the thing that we are pursuing. And once user can easily, adopt that, and it will be very, very easy to use.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, to add to that, I don't think like we kind of have this idea of like, here's the watermark for liquidity, and then how would that be spread around, and we think it's sort of like this kind of like thing. But at each turn in each one of these cycles that we go through, as adoption increases, that watermark goes up, right? And at each technical innovation inflection point, right, that watermark also goes up. So because more people are able to take part. So when we get to, interoperability, when we get to some of these technical innovation inflection points, that watermark of available liquidity, in my estimation, like ends up going up, right? So what that means in my view is that I think until we get to like a full saturation of the world with blockchain, right? Like until we get to internet in, I don't know, 2010, to make an analogy, like I think liquidity is going to be sloshing around in various ways. It usually finds its way to the most efficient and best user experiences. So I think that, like that's where it'll end up. But at the same time, there will be many projects that can take part in that increased, capacity.
Yeah, the only thing I just want to I'm sorry, just want to quickly jump on super quick, is that the one thing about crypto and liquidity is that it chases incentives. So that's why you saw things go literally ape on BSC when they had all these crazy yield farms. And the same thing's happening to Polygon. So crypto people, particularly DeFi people, are degens and they're apes, and they chase 1,000x's, and liquidity does follow, but it's also there for a fleeting moment.
Right. Yeah, I also wanted to add to that that basically, if we take some practical use cases or practical implications. So, for example, if you dealt with BUSD, for example, the only way now to convert BUSD on Ethereum to BUSD on the Binance Smart Chain is to go to Binance and to do that through the centralized exchange. And actually this means that everything that users are expecting from DeFi got particularly mitigated through this just one single point of failure, which Binance represents, right, as a centralized solution. And there are many other use cases like that, like per se moving USDT from different exotic chains like Tron or something to Ethereum and back and forth. And obviously just these simple tiny things will be obviously solved in decentralized way through true cross-chain interoperability and applications that will be implemented with this approach. At Equilibrium, we're also working on that because we're implementing the curve implementation on substrates, which is the part of our collaboration with the Curve team, and obviously we'll be facilitating moving this stablecoin liquidity from one chain to another in order to swap it with the tiny slippage through our swapping mechanism that we'll be launching on our substrate. And I'm sure there will be many other use cases like that.
Yeah, and then if I can just make a final point, which is that there are other ways to enlarge the catchment area of value produced by blockchain other than DeFi, right? Other than echoing traditional financial instruments in a decentralized way. And and obviously I'm super biased on that because we're a data validation layer. We're all about D-data. We think there are innumerable use cases for us to monetize and operationalize data, whether it's from an individual standpoint, say you're tokenizing your genome, or whether it's from an enterprise standpoint where you have a lot of information that you want to sell to researchers or run through ML or something like that, right? So I think that there's a lot of expansions here. Certainly and then individuals also have a lot of information that's financial as well that can end up getting monetized and operationalized as well, like credit risk, credit info and things like that. Very interesting to consider. And when we get to an interoperable point, as well as when we get to a common, hopefully a common virtual identity layer as well. That might be a big piece of the puzzle too to get solved in the next little bit. When those things kind of like come together, and then also trusted computing, all of those things coming together will be really, really neat to see how that plays out. And I think there's going to be some really interesting, cool stories and cool innovations that we that we can't even conceive of yet.
And so, especially with I see with the yields, like John was saying, you've seen an explosion of yields back with BSC and then Polygon, and a lot of other protocols are also kind of doing similar things. If we start seeing cross-chain interoperability really take off and really be adopted in an improved way, do you see those types of yields really going away and flattening completely as the flow of money is easily moving around? Or do you see still projects figuring out gamification mechanisms to kind of really keep the loyal fans having the high yield, and kind of the more of the mercenary yield farmers kind of putting them away?
Good question. Personally, I would think that it would have some sort of compression effect on these kind of crazy high yields, which I think is good, not just for investors, but also for projects themselves, so they don't have to go into this like hyperinflation model where the only way they can attract users is by putting out these insane farms. I think it's a good thing if you can have an easy, like a smooth user experience to be able to transition across chains, that you can actually access different farms in a pretty seamless manner, frictionless manner. That would make the experience much easier for a lot of people who get locked out of farms that are maybe on a chain that they're not familiar with. They have to figure out how to get there. By the time that they even move their assets over there, they're already in the second pool that gets rugged. And obviously, these are not the things that we want to see in the space. And with the maturation of the space, with the maturation of the cross-chain technology in general, I think that these things will begin to subside. But that does not mean that these things are going to go to zero. For all intents and purposes, projects are still printing utility tokens out of thin air. So they're going to continue to incentivize their users some way or the other, whether that's through gamification or through high yield. There's a number of different ways to skin that cat. But hopefully it's not as insane as some of these like crazy rug pull yield farms that we see, literally every day. That's not good for the space.
I agree with that. Yeah. I always use the analogy of today's financial, we call it hot centers, like New York, London, or Hong Kong, Tokyo, right? There will be just one, space. But when there's a hot economy, always more resources will move over there, right? That's natural, but there's always some kind of barriers and some frictions out there, like John pointed out, right? Like what we are doing that today, we have integrated more than 7 different chains, right? And there are activities of DeFi space with very, very high yield on let's say this chain or that chain, but because of trust issue, right? Because people are not familiar with it, right? There are many other frictions or barriers for users to actually move their assets from one chain to another, right? And to participate on those high yield, activities. And then people are scared and people don't want to do it, right? But with the perfect information flow, I would say, that high yield craziness will come down a little bit, right? Eventually. But I will see that because of the, somehow, individual economies, sometimes it's harder than the other. And because of the group, we call it group economy, right? And many dApps actually bundle together and create higher, yield. Crazy things can still happen, but it won't be as crazy in the past.
Yeah, and maybe I wanted to add to that on another hand, cross-chain interoperability might even facilitate the migration between these farming protocols, right? And actually the liquidity will be moving faster from one protocol to another, and actually draining the allocations of tokens for farming more quickly. So obviously we know that these yield farming opportunities totally depend on sort of allocations and token economy of particular projects, right? You cannot give out more tokens than you're allocated. And usually, since these sort of yield farming things are not setting sort of bars for how high might be the rewards, these processes might be just even be speeding up.
Yeah, great. That's very, very interesting points. Especially, this one about it almost seems like DeFi is going to get very professional in terms of like how these projects are going to really figure out how to not be taken advantage of, and a lot of these projects have been taken advantage of, but there's been friction between the various protocols, and that really kind of has a higher level of skill in terms of being able to move through these chains. So in terms of projects that are facilitating this interoperability world, which ones have you guys seen, or what kind of strategies have you noticed that are really promising and could potentially be the ones that really help to connect the blockchains together?
Yeah, let me maybe take it away. So firstly, I think that the sort of the trend on the market is that many projects are going to use layer 2 solutions, specifically Ethereum-based projects. And this actually, as Jack mentioned, is a good way for to scale your applications in terms of its capacity and actually operations. So we have quite substantial amounts of good examples here of different DeFi projects on Ethereum. I personally studied a lot of projects which are actually running their DEXs, because we're currently working on our own DEX, considering different opportunities to work with layer 2 solutions as well. And I think, like, for example, DYDX, they did a great job in terms of integration with Starkware, and actually their exchange and the user experience on their exchange is pretty smooth, very, very slick, very fast transactions, fast matching and stuff. And I'm sure that these sort of application of layer 2 solutions and interoperability in its essence makes a lot of sense and improves the current user experience in DeFi and with the DeFi applications.
Yeah, let me sell Wanchain a little bit more on this. Right, our project started with let's say Polkadot Cosmos in the early days. And for the past 4 or 5 years, we have integrated like most of the major chains like Bitcoin, Ethereum, EOS, Litecoin, XRP, and we recently and many more. And recently we just launched the integration with the Polkadot, right? And I think that's very, very, very important. Hopefully, assets can be moving in and out of Polkadot, and will be more DeFi hot centers in the coming years. And I think Wanchain has this we call the multi-chain and also cross-chain, cross-layer this technology, and people can don't have to trust any centralized bridges, and there are certainly many of them centralized, and we're trying to build a decentralized solution. And based on past few years, this problem is very, very difficult to solve. And in the past few years, we have tried and experimented with different paths. We finally found one that actually can adopt and also adapt to the different needs for different projects. Like I mentioned, crossing like different layers, and also with the chains that issue different assets on different chains. Our solution can all solve that problem, and even the liquidity on different chains, we can help to solve the liquidity, move that liquidity from one chain to another, right? And I will encourage everybody to give it a try. And I think this is really the best solution or decentralized bridges out there in the market.
Yeah, so I'll, if I can add to that, we're actually, and by the way, we're actually, this is sort of like interoperability in practice from my standpoint, because Kylin's actually partnered with everybody on this in this panel. So, but to to really sort of like highlight that in terms of from a technical level. When we were, when I was making my first pitches, when we were thinking about what we were going to build on, we operated from some sort of like central axioms. One of which was, what's our most general basic thesis about just the big picture of crypto, and for us it was a multi-chain future. So and then we started going, going deeper into that. Well, where are developers heading? We felt a lot of developers were heading to Substrate, and then so we identified Substrate as a great sort of language to build upon, or platform to build upon, and then we started thinking like, when we were pitching people, were about, hey, partner with this unknown project, Kylin. You don't know anything about us, but what do you think? That pitch, and maybe they were in a disparate part of the ecosystem, right? They may even be outside of Polkadot. All this is getting to the point of what gave us the confidence to make a lot of different partnerships, was knowing that there was sort of a technical innovation from our standpoint encased within Polkadot, in terms of their relay chain, and in terms of the broader roadmap for them to make, bridge chaining being very, very possible, for us to have confidence to make partnerships, with Wanchain or even Ethereum-based projects, where we said, in the long-term roadmap, we're going to be able to be interoperable with a lot of these different projects. So I didn't feel that was like disingenuous or insincere, to say, we're partnering with this, we're partnering with that. And sometimes a lot of projects get flack for, too many partnerships. But I felt like that building within Polkadot gave us the confidence to be able to do that. So indeed, I think in terms of solutions out there, I'm very bullish on Polkadot, but I think that would be hypocritical if I was to say I'm specifically bullish on Polkadot, because Polkadot is inherently a cross-chain type of platform, right? So the whole idea behind it is like, let's be in the place where hopefully all the connections are getting made. And I'm very confident. I'm very encouraged by where it's at, even though it's taking longer than I think a lot of people expected. But I'm very like proud of our CTO, who actually engineered and innovated a basic innovation for Polkadot, which is XCMP palette calling. Recently. So I mean, I think that there's a lot of room to grow, and I totally think that yeah. But I'm big on Polkadot. I guess is the summary.
And adding to that, we're working on
Wanchain.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're currently working on integration with your ballots. So just a heads up. Yeah. So we're looking into that. We're looking into that. Yeah, and actually, just if I may add to that, if no matter which interoperable platform you're building on, whether it's Polkadot or something else, obviously we consider Polkadot as one of the most advanced, but there are some other platforms out there which also suitable for development, and obviously represent certain functionality and interoperability embedded. So no matter which platform you're building on, if it delivers interoperability, you can feel yourself in the center of the space, in the center between other blockchains, and you eventually can get connected with its liquidity, with its communities, with their sort of applications, and definitely it's a huge advantage for developers and for further development of your project.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone here, thinks that there's a lot of opportunities with respect to Polkadot. Obviously we're building with Substrate and are, we're really excited not only about, what's happening with the SOMA auctions and what's happening, or what happened already, I guess. So good luck to Equilibrium on the upcoming one as well. But I think there's some other awesome chains out there, and cross-chain solutions as well. I was joking a little bit before we got on that, I think I'm the only one on the panel who's not rocking any of my own project's gear. But I am rocking some Rune DMC gear. And I'm gonna take a little bit of devil's advocate side here, because I think one of the interesting things about a pretty cool, I love Rune and Thorchain, but a pretty cool project that it has been doing cross-chain applications has come into light recently because of some issues. Because of some exploits that happened, particularly with their bridge between their native Rune asset and their ERC20 assets. So that's an issue, and that's going to be something that's going to continually happen in the future when we continue to develop and iterate on these kind of cross-chain smart contract, data sharing and transactions. This is beginning, and there's going to be a lot more. So buckle up. I will prepare you guys for that. So this is nascent technology, right? It really is just the beginning, for better or for worse. But that's the kind of exciting part about it. And I think as long as you have really human teams that are continuing to build this extremely important technology, that's what the space needs to really kind of take it to the next level. So maybe that's my flip side of the cross-chain space here.
And code with no bugs.
Yeah. if only that happened all the time, that would be nice.
We've seen really the DeFi sector take off mostly in Ethereum. But the focus has really been, for the most part, tied to Ethereum. Do you see that continuing? Do you see that trend continuing with Ethereum, or do you see other protocols really taking kind of a big share of that? How do you see that developing? Especially, do you see the trend continuing with Ethereum really being the dominant leader, or can other protocols really start taking some of its share? I'm assuming this would probably happen before any real kind of cross-chain interoperability.
Well, let me take a step on that. I'm an Ethereum fan, certainly, and there are many Polkadot fans over here. So I agree. There are many, financial centers or hot DeFi spaces in the coming years, and there will be a lot more competition from many public chains. But so far, up to now, if we see the trend, right, Ethereum has gained a lot of space. Actually, just not a few minutes ago or a couple of hours ago, actually, Ethereum just finished the London fork, right? And I think could give us a lot of positive signs. And there are many dApps being built on Ethereum, and even many other public chains, they are also using the EVMs or make a EVM compatible, right? Solidity is gaining a lot of ground, right? Because even Polkadot, right? Polkadot is having multiple chains, multiple projects are building, EVM compatible, all these solutions out there, right? So I'm thinking that, based on past couple years momentum, at least we see the trend that Ethereum with the 2.0 release, right, to solve the cost issue and speed, make it scalable, especially with layer 2, and with the army of developers and with all the existing dApps with multiple years of testing of the DeFi code, right? And we know the hackers out there always, right? So it takes years, right? It takes time for us to actually to trust all these DeFi applications. So with the observation from all these different areas, I see that the trend will continue to move on the Ethereum side. That's how I see. And Wanchain certainly was fork of Ethereum back in 2017 and continue to build on top of Ethereum. We roll out layer 2 solutions and also solutions to support layer 2 cross layer integrations. I think we'll ride the wave as well. And then certainly Polkadot, we are integrated with Polkadot as well, and all these assets can flow into these different blockchains.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the time when I would hear things like, "Who needs a programmable block? Like, who needs a programmable blockchain? That's stupid. It's over-engineered. There's no point." And that was how a lot of the I don't know, Jack, you probably and I mean, I'm probably sure everybody here remembers some of that scuttlebutt that went around where Bitcoin was really ascendant. There were like colored coins, there were many forks, and then there was Ethereum, and then people were, what the hell is the point of programmable blockchain? And it's quite prescient that developed then. But you're indeed right, Jack. There's a ton of work and resources, and really, in my view, it's like developer talent, right? How do these things get implemented that is still encased in Solidity, where they feel most comfortable and it's easiest, and there's a ton of developer talent writing in Solidity. So I think that may have some effect for some time to come. But I do believe that over time, I think it will be eroded to some extent, if you want to talk about it in the context of like a zero-sum game. And my belief in that is that I do think, if you're looking at Ethereum, it's sort of like a sequential situation, like everybody gets in line, where I think that there are other solutions out there that, for example, Polkadot, where it's more, I would consider like more like I use the analogy of it's like food trucks versus a cafeteria, where you can get specific needs served right in a customized way, and then you can also scale without much cost or resourcing to the end user. Maybe that will change as technical innovations develop with Ethereum as time goes on, but from the foundational level, at least, the tech, I see there may be some challenges for Ethereum as time goes on with upstarts to it. So yeah, I think Ethereum's going to have that financial sort of like use case and be ascendant there and dominant for a long time to come. But I think that other chains are going to start to have a little bit more ascendancy as time goes on. So I accord with your view, Jeff.
Yeah, and I also remember the time when there were just CryptoKitties and IDEX running on Ethereum, and there was tough times when no one actually got the advantages of building decentralized applications. There were literally no liquidity on chain. The market cap of crypto was quite low those days. But now, despite all the attempts to build Ethereum killers, right, there were many attempts like that. Ethereum is still there. And I think, obviously, Ethereum is here to stay, given all the innovations, all the amendments that they're going to deliver and roll out on their network. And maybe another thing which is very important to consider, that Ethereum currently holds the most of value, specifically in DeFi, thanks to, first of all the market cap of Ethereum itself, and obviously the assets that are based on Ethereum, right? There are so many ERC20 tokens issued on Ethereum, and they have their own value. And definitely some ecosystem, some blockchain platform, which will be considered as sort of the true competitor to Ethereum. This platform firstly needs to obtain the same value or even more value than Ethereum, right? Otherwise, it will be very difficult for them to overcome Ethereum in this sense. So, if interoperability for sure will help sort of blockchain platforms to obtain value, because there were many wrappers on existing assets coming into these networks. specifically like on Polkadot. We see a lot of efforts from the side of different projects who are building bridges, right? With bridges with Ethereum, bridges with other networks. However, I think that like from the practical standpoints, from the standpoints of the Polkadot-based projects, I should say that we need to be interconnected with Ethereum, and we need to have this connection with Ethereum community to success, right? To succeed in terms of our sort of roadmap, obtaining the liquidity and stuff. And I think that it will be sort of these ecosystems, all the ecosystems existing now in the market will be coexisting in parallel with Ethereum, and they will be interacting with each other. And eventually, it doesn't matter for the end user on which blockchain platform the application the user actually uses is based on, right? Whether it's Ethereum, Polkadot, whatever, interoperability will erase all these boundaries and eventually deliver the seamless user experience.
Yeah, and just to maybe add one kind of final closing thought, because I think we're a bit tight on time. I saw a question seemed to be posed from the audience with respect to regulation. So again, I'll take a little bit of a different view on it than everyone else. But in terms of that question, which was respective to, how does DeFi going to handle regulation, and how is it going to be compliant? Considering the fact that we are legitimately working the SEC and FINRA on this. At the moment, I can say that they are not comfortable with any other chain outside of Ethereum and maybe Bitcoin. That is what they know. So 100% full stop. That is where it ends at the moment. That does not mean that the SEC and FINRA will be okay with Polkadot and Cosmos, and I'm not sure if they're going to be too happy with BSC anytime soon. But at least some of the other ones down the line, it stops and ends at Ethereum at the moment, and that is a huge kind of moat that they have in their favor at the moment in terms of how do you issue tokens, how are they classified, how do you build decentralized applications, how do they even understand the settlement, the bookkeeping, all these different things. So in terms of compliance, Ethereum definitely has a leg up, at least when you're talking about the US, which, let's be honest, that's who everyone's scared of in the end of the day with respect to crypto securities regulations. So got to play ball with Mr. Gensler.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, enjoy, guys. Have a good one. Take it easy.
Bye.